right, Game Marks podcast. We are now welcoming Todd from Filsinger Games. Welcome to the Game Marks podcast. We are happy to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Johnny and George. This is great.
So, first of all, for everyone who doesn't know, why don't you explain, well, first of all, who you are and what you do at Filsinger?
Sure. So I'm Todd Joerchel. I do a little bit of everything for Filsinger Games. I started out as a fan back in the day. So this, Filsinger Games kind of started in the 80s. It's a card game mostly around the Champions of the Galaxy game, which if you were a long time Pro Wrestling Illustrated reader, I'm sure you would have seen some of those ads back in the day. I started playing back in 91, and then somewhere in like the mid 2000s, I kind of started coming in and kind of helping out a lot of other things. And now I've, help, send out some of the stuff. I also help coordinate some of the different things, mostly around our independent wrestling games, and also run some of our different fan conventions as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's some of the stuff we wanted to ask about. So we see an extensive amount of indie wrestling names. We noticed a bunch of our friends on there.
Yep.
You were kind enough to send us Matt and Brian and Bear Country. But these cards seamlessly integrate into the Legends of Wrestling game itself, or are they their own?
Yeah, so all the cards are across all the different game lines can all definitely work with each other.
Cool.
We try our best to balance things out between Legends and the Indies, and kind of make something. Obviously, it's tough to say for sure. There's always a lot of gray area around exactly, how well they should stack up against each other. But we try our best to kind of at least make sure that they make sense against each other. So you're not going to have the Road Warriors against Los Ice Creams from Chikara is not going to be, an even matchup. So
That's one thing we noticed looking at like the back of the cards, the attention to detail, whether it's the move names or the, I guess, what do you call the, like, hit points or?
I guess just kind of like how we stat it. Yeah, it's not necessarily hit points that we have, but yeah, I mean the offense and defense and how you set those up, and like the strength of the offense, strength of the defense. We do a lot of research into exactly what moves people use, what type of offense that they have. So if somebody is a much more has much more longer matches that are much more defensive, the card is going to reflect that. If it's a very fast paced, high hitting, but maybe, a quick matches that guys will have, then that gets reflected as well. There's definitely a lot of detail paste to that. Where we can, if we could, talk to certain people that we do cards with, we try to get their input as far as the move names that they use. So we're just accurately reflecting it best we can.
That's awesome. Now, when you sent us the Champions of the Galaxy pack as well, we opened that during the episode as well, which, I mean, the thing that jumps out at us, the artwork is so beautiful on the cards. It's so great. It's very eye-catching. And, in the Champions of the Galaxy set that you sent us, there's one character that you show, I believe it's Wolf, right? Is that?
Yes,
I got it right here.
Where you show the original artwork and the newer artwork. So we were kind of curious as to what did the wrestler's artwork look back in 2003? Like, what was that style? Like, was it similar to what it is now? Was it more of like a simplified version?
Yeah, I guess the game started get back in the 80s, and I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with a game called Stratomatic. I know Stratomatic Baseball was a really big thing back when I was younger. I know I'm a little bit older than you guys there.
I know the name.
Yeah, that definitely sounds familiar.
Okay, then they made a lot of different sports games that's very, very stat based, and the Champions of the Galaxy was kind of based a little bit around that, about doing a simulation type game. Yeah. Oh, there you go.
It's in my basement. Yeah, I have this.
Yeah, so it's very much like that, where like each card represents a specific player in Stratomatic, and then in this one, every card represents a wrestler. So it's not like you have a deck that might represent 20, 30 cards that might be a character. Everybody, a character is just on one card, and so there's 3 levels of offense, 3 levels of defense, and there's a couple other chart ratings and stuff like that. So, as you kind of certain things that you'll go onto a chart for that, depending on the ratings between each of the different opponents, that'll help drive the flow of the match. And then, So yeah, it's kind of very much on that Stratomatic side where there's different levels depending on like what type of things that you're doing, and the dice rolls will help to determine that. Back in the day, I think when it was first done, there's a couple other games on the market, and everything was just black and white basic cards, so that wolf card that you have there, that's how the cards originally were, and they were for quite a while, probably longer than they should have been, to be quite honest. And eventually we're like, okay, we need to start colorizing stuff. So first thing that was colorized was Champions of the Galaxy. And then we wanted to it was like, okay, we had just started kind of, we'd been doing Legends of Wrestling for a while, which is real life wrestlers, kind of mostly guys in the past. But then the idea was kind of coming up that I kind of brought to Tom Filsinger, who's the creator there, was like, we should really be looking at the indies these days because, who's kind of like, going to be the guys of the future. So I kind of started with him, what we called Legends of the Future, which was the first kind of sets that we did. But then quickly thereafter, like, okay, let's get into really making this more of a color product. And then we started off with Chikara, which was the first one. I'm a huge Chikara fan. That's what got me into indie wrestling. So that was an easy kind of bridge between Champions of the Galaxy and indie wrestling. I figured that was, it's comic booky, whatnot. It kind of fit with the art style and whatnot. So we started with that and then eventually got into Ring of Honor. We've done Evolve stuff, Shimmer, CZW, and a bunch of other different feds or promotions for a while. The last couple years, we have kind of strayed away from working with individual promotions just because we kind of felt it was a little limiting. There are certain guys who are like, well, we want to do a card for this guy, but he doesn't work for any of the other promotions. So eventually now it's kind of like the best of the indies. So we have a set that's focused around men, women, tag teams. We did a deathmatch set. We've done different areas. So we did a UK, a Canada, Mexico, whatever the focus is, we kind of bounce around, but we try to get guys across all aspects of indie wrestling. And I think it's been very well received recently.
Yeah, it's cool to see names that maybe back then you wouldn't have thought you would be seeing on a bigger stage now. I mean, friends of mine, MJF, Chris Statlander, I mean, Bear Country, they're all in there. But then you see like AJ Styles and Adam Cole and all those guys. And it's just really cool to see we knew. I mean, obviously AJ, we knew what Adam Cole would become, but now they're just like mega stars. And that's really cool that they're in your line.
Yeah, no, exactly. Even other ones were like, well, hey, there's this guy that's starting to get a little bit of buzz now that's out of the Pacific Northwest, or Darby Allin guy. Let's do it. He's got a cool look. Let's do a card for him. And then suddenly now he's like one of the biggest guys there. It's kind of cool kind of seeing the trajectory of some of the guys that, when we first kind of did cards for them, maybe weren't very well known by many people in the industry.
It's crazy to go through the Find Your Favorite Wrestlers page on your website. I found that while we were recording the episode, like, we're talking and we're like reading and like, oh, this person has a card, this person has a card, and like we're reading off the person's name, scrambling to try to find the artwork of the card if it wasn't already in the pack that we had it. And it's just this list is, I almost want to use the word daunting. It's so massive.
It can be, yes.
It's so cool though, because there's so many people from so many different promotions, from so many different, I guess, levels, ranking, indie guys, legends, people who, are just getting signed now. It's crazy to just see the amount of names on this list.
Yeah, no, that's been a lot of fun. It's just kind of, seeing who else we can bring in. Obviously, the legend stuff the last couple of years has really kind of gotten even bigger for us. We had to, we first started off back in 2003 with the legends, and it was all the black and white sets, but we kind of like relaunched legends maybe about 5 or 6 years ago with the color starter set, which is the one that I sent you guys there. But we've been doing expansion since then and kind of bringing new guys in, and it's been cool. We've been able to get, the permission from all sorts of guys. Like, there's Tully Blanchard was the new one that was added in later, Rock and Roll Express. We did a set that was kind of more Midwest based that we got Stan Hansen in there for kind of a 90s set that we got Vader. But even like we try to also, a big focus for us is paying homage to the history of wrestling. So one of the last legend sets that we did earlier this year, we had Sputnik Monroe and Billy Wicks in there that we got permissions from their family, which we were beyond thrilled with because that's such a big piece of wrestling history that we get to recreate in the game, which is so cool. And then we did like a vintage set last year with guys like Gotch and Hack and Schmidt, and had special charts that reflected the wrestling style of the day. And that's another thing that we've really kind of done also, is that if you have certain styles of matches that you want to run, you can do it here. There's special charts for that. We have a book that we just kind of re-released, our big compendium called the Ringside Companion, which has like 100 types of matches in there. You can run anything from a battle royal, different types of steel cage matches, chain matches, like tables, ladders, anything you want, you can pretty much run in there.
That's awesome. See, that's what I explained earlier when we did the full episode on this. This doesn't have to just be a game you play. There's like an endless amount of like a collection aspect to this as well. Like, I don't know how many times me and George are going to play this game because we don't see each other very often, but I want to go and I want to buy, like you said, Darby Allin. Like, I want to start like actually just having these just to have them because they're cool.
Yeah.
I think that's a whole new side of it that it's endless, like we said, and you're gonna keep putting stuff out, and yeah, it's just so cool. But were there any other wrestling games that kind of inspired you or brought you into the wrestling game, I guess, spectrum? Like there's Raw Deal. There's just recently Smack Talk Showdown that comes with Lewd Attitude. Are you familiar with any of those?
Yeah, I'm familiar with a couple of those. I've kind of maybe played them here and there, but I mean, to me, it's always just the one that kind of got me was the Champions of the Galaxy back in the '90s, and that's really mostly what I personally play. I mean, obviously, before that, I was playing, the early video games. I was going back to NES Pro Wrestling and all that stuff. That got me hooked on wrestling games for sure.
Those are the questions we should be asking you, but.
But unfortunately, my video games is not as much. My son is more the video game player of the family at this point there. So I unfortunately not as much as up to date on all that as I have been in the past. But mostly just kind of focusing on stuff around the card game here. And we do have a digital version of it as well that we do. You can play online as well with it too, which I know we're still looking at doing some major enhancements to that in the future. But
that's cool.
Yeah.
Where could that be found?
That can be found at cotgonline.com. It's also off the Filsinger Games website. Still, most of our people do play the standard cards, and I think that one has more of the collectible aspect, as you mentioned. I think there's plenty of people that don't necessarily play everything. Maybe they'll play through it once as they kind of get it, but I think there's a lot. The collectible aspect is definitely a big thing there.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to go to our Patreon fan questions now. We kind of answered some already, so I'm going to skip through those. But
do we want to just get the big one out of the way now that we ask everyone?
No. That's the last one. That's the last one. What could we expect at Galacticon 33?
So Galacticon is our annual summer convention that we do. For I guess like the first 25 years, we held it up in Jamestown, New York, which is upstate New York near Buffalo. That's where Tom Filsinger, the founder of the company, lived. So we had it up there as our annual track, and he's since moved out to Arizona. So we've been kind of traveling it around the last couple of years. But it's our game convention that we do. Mostly it's around people getting together and playing the game. I think a lot of people play by themselves. I think that one thing that we didn't really kind of mention is it's very good for solitaire. So kind of playing by yourself there, you don't have to play against somebody else, it's a unique aspect. And some of the creativity there is really around kind of building up your promotion and kind of telling the storylines through the cards and dice. So I think a lot of people mostly just play it that way and don't get a chance to play against other people in more of a competitive aspect. So we have, there we kind of run different game tournaments and whatnot. We'll have big reveals of things that are coming up for the rest of the year. We'll have our major releases. So the main Champions of the Galaxy game gets released at Galacticon each year. I think it's on to the 52nd edition at this point, which is
nice.
Well, it's an ongoing continuous storyline from since then. Every single year we get up to for a while. There's twice a year updates, which is why it's a little longer than that. But yeah, I think it's the 52nd edition, which again kind of daunting, but there's different jumping on points and whatnot. And then we also have our a big release for our George Tragos Luthez Hall of Fame set. This is a third one that we're doing there. It's a Hall of Fame that's based out in Waterloo, Iowa. A couple of the guys who work on our Legends game are on like the board and heavily involved with everything there. So we kind of have a partnership there, and that's kind of gotten us some great names the last couple of years. Jerry Briscoe is kind of the chair of everything there, and he's been a huge supporter of everything that we do. And we do a big fundraising auction each year, and that's part of Galacticon as well. We usually have some special guests and whatnot. I think we're still kind of working a little bit on that, but this year we're going to be hosting out in Chicago at the Holiday Inn out by the O'Hare Airport. Just a full weekend of kind of wrestling fun. I know there's a AAW wrestling show, there's an MLW wrestling show in town that weekend. So mostly it's around gameplay and just kind of fellowship around the game fans. It's a big kind of community that we kind of keep on fostering, and that's a big part for a lot of us too.
That's great.
Yeah, I love that.
That's awesome.
I want to change this one up a little bit, George, because it's kind of, this game's been around a while. They asked like the inspiration for the artwork and the inspiration for kind of like what helped create the game, but it's been around for so long. So I guess we could kind of touch on what inspired the artwork, but I guess the revamped artwork, and also any challenges with getting, say, a wrestler or a license that you want, because I know I would like a nice Sting card.
Oh, but, yeah.
I don't see it there.
Yeah, obviously it's a small company, so like our budget is a little limited, and, we're not just going to go and put something out there, without somebody's permission. So we right. Whatever we can do, if we can get permission there, there's certain things that we have certain agreements with certain people, depending on the situation. It's all kind of fluid there, but it's certain aspects. I say like working with the Hall of Fame in Iowa has definitely gotten us some people that we probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise there. Just as far as the inspiration for the artwork, I guess it really kind of, for the real life guys, we try to find what we think is a great encapsulation of the wrestler there and base it off of different artwork that we find. We try to get like whatever in certain times we'll do like different versions of guys, like an alternate version of a guy. But for the first time that we're doing it, we try to get like the best encapsulation of the guy. And our artist, Werner Meek, is, we have a couple artists that work on different things, but he's our most prolific artist and does most of the indies and the Legends guys. And he just does a great job of kind of capturing that. And he's a self-taught colorist as well, and he does an awesome job with the coloring. It's really amazing.
Such a unique and beautiful style. I mean, they're so eye-catching, and especially at the size that the cards are printed, it's literally the first thing that I noticed. It was just like, how are you not drawn to the cards just because of how great they look?
I thought they looked a little like almost like tattoos, the way they're shaded and outlined.
No, I could see that. I can see that.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. But as far as the Champions of the Galaxy, I guess it really kind of that's kind of more of our fictional series, more sci-fi in the future. And I mean, there's all sorts of different things for that. Obviously, there's definitely comic book influences and sci-fi influences there. Tom has been writing again since the 80s, and he always, whatever kind of is the current day things, even in pop culture and other things that kind of influence that. There's all sorts of things that might influence, but the current artist for our GWF, which is kind of like the main Champions of the Galaxy line, is Daryl Banks, who has done a lot of artwork for Green Lantern and a number of other DC and Marvel titles there, and he's great. So he's been doing it, I think, at least the last 10 years or so. He's been doing the artwork for our main Champions of the Galaxy set, and then we have some other ones too. We've done our reimagined sets, which is kind of starting back from the original version, the original games that first came out, having new artwork and colorized and whatnot. And that's actually been a good thing to kind of get people into Champions of the Galaxy from the other games. It's a nice introduction there. And then the one that I sent you guys was our Tournament of Champions set, which was like a special set kind of in honor of our 50th mainline game release. And it was the kind of like best art from best characters from over the years, and a number of different artists that we've had. Our original artist was Chuck Carter, who's gone on to do a lot of different games. He was one of the main designers on Myst, I know, for a while, and he's done some other different video game stuff these days. But we've had a couple of other different artists. Another one that I'm sure people, if you're a comic book fan, know is Brian Michael Bendis, who's a big writer at Marvel now, and he was an artist for us for quite a while too.
That's awesome.
Which is so kind of cool. Neat. So within that game set, you'll see like different artists from all of our different years in there, and some of our kind of best hit characters. So it's not necessarily as much of a tight storyline that you'd see in like our main series sets, but it's a nice kind of taste just to kind of get a sense as the whole history of the game. And we also put some stuff in there about the actual history of the game itself in that book, which is for people who are unfamiliar.
That's awesome.
Awesome. The books were one of my favorite features. Here's the burning question.
Okay.
Can you do a kickflip?
I cannot do a kickflip.
All right. Sorry. I mean, we haven't found anyone yet, so we got to hit up Darby or something.
Yeah.
I still to this day don't remember where that started from.
I don't know, but we've asked everyone since. No one can do it. Anything else you want to plug? Anything big coming up?
Sorry. Our big thing is the convention coming up this summer there, and our big releases around that. We'll have up. We usually do our pre-orders a couple of weeks before the release, but our big George Tragos Luthez Hall of Fame set. We'll have our first name actually announced tonight. Will be our first big name release for that, but we'll have names throughout the whole month. We try to do stuff usually a couple times a week. If you follow our social media. On Twitter, filsingergames.com, the Filsinger Games on Twitter, and we post everything on filsingergames.com as well. And you can just kind of follow all of our releases there. We'll be doing, again, our main Champions of the Galaxy release. We just are about to send out our Best of the Indies 2022 set, which has, some pretty fun names. I know Ziggy Dice is in there.
I think I saw Ninja Mac is in that.
Ninja Mac is in that. Yes. Kevin Blackwood was in that. That's one of our favorite indie releases of the year. We did mention we have mentioned earlier in the year that we're going to do our next women's set. We do a women's set every year, so that one will be coming out in the fall. And then we had done a tag team set earlier this year that had like the Von Erichs in there, and it had one of the main events. I know there's multiple main events going around the indie scene this year, but the Midwest version. Hopefully we get the Northeast version in there soon too.
Very popular name.
Yeah, they're great.
Differently.
Yeah, exactly. But then the other thing that's really kind of big that's kind of popped. It's a kind of one of those accidental thing. Well, I don't know if it's accidental, but kind of maybe. Good things that's kind of come out of the pandemic, if there is such a thing, is that we've been starting to do virtual conventions. So like as part of if you can't join us in Chicago for Galacticon, you could also join us virtually online and kind of participate in some online tournaments, as well as doing being part of our panels and any of our special guest interview. You can participate in that, and then we do other quarterly interviews as well, quarterly virtual conventions as well. We usually have a guest on there. I know we just had Jerry Briscoe at the last one. We had Les Thatcher in January, and we had done a Memphis set last year and had Austin Idol on there to kind of announce his card in that set too, which is kind of fun. So it's kind of cool. We try to bring in the legends as much as we can into that, and just kind of get people together and do some of these game tournaments online best we can. So it's definitely a lot of fun, and it's definitely fostered the community. If you go to our website, there's our link to our message board, and then also to our Facebook page where people are just sharing stuff all the time, it's definitely been a big thing the last couple of years. It's just kind of that community getting even closer together in these kind of crazy times. It's kind of somehow it's fostered more togetherness in that way.
It's fantastic.
Awesome. I love everything about this company and the sets and just everything. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us and informing our listeners. I think you're going to get a lot more fans after they hear and hopefully see this. Thank you. Keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
Don't be surprised if Clash is sliding into those DMs trying to get that Sting card.
Well, the other thing I will say is online there's a big bootleg community too. So if you can't find someone that we put out there's probably some type of bootleg out there too. So people sharing stuff all over the place. So yeah.
Sounds good. Awesome. All right.
Todd, thank you very much for coming and hanging out with us.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Game Marks Podcast, put them on the radar. Playing rare games, Sega Saturn, no Game Shark. Johnny and George work hard and they play hard. Future Endeavor games and put them in the graveyard. From the deep dive to the clash at the feast. How can I get more? That's question of the week. Follow on Twitch, there's nothing that they won't play. Game Marks Podcast every single Monday.